Hello, dear friends. The attention of the whole world is focused on Ukraine and around that country. There is a big tension on the border between Ukraine and Russian Federation, a big build-up of military forces, and everybody speaks about the war. It's very important for Armenia and Armenians. It's important for Armenia as a country. It's important for Armenian community, a big community that lives in Ukraine, around 500,000 people, and as well in Russian Federation. We need to know what's going on and to predict what will become in near future. So my guest is Tigran Avakyan, who was Deputy Internal Minister of Ukraine in charge of European integration, and he has first-hand information. Let's speak and see what his source is telling, what's going on. Hello, Mr. Avakyan.
Hello, Mr. Papian.
What's going on in Ukraine? Because there are a lot of controversial information about the situation on the border. There were some clashes this night. Is it beginning of the war, or is just as everyday tension that were there for many years? Please, the floor is yours.
I think we understand that nobody could state when the war will be launched and if the war will be launched. The Ukrainian crisis is growing. We see now that it was not possible to reach an agreement in the UN Security Council. Yes, and the parties now raised the stakes. It's a very serious situation, and it's very important to listen the last speech by US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He very well characterized the situation, acuteness of the moment, and the position of the United States. The US Secretary of State used the UN platform to show the Russian Federation and the world that they have information regarding Russian military plans. Ukraine state present time shows the highest readiness concerning present situation. Situation is very problematic, and nobody really know what will be happened next day or in a week or also next hour. Mm-hmm. This is what we have present time.
How can you feel the intention of the people? We know that the government is ready to defend the country, but what think ordinary people? What's their intention? Are they ready to defend their country, and are they capable to do so?
I'm sure, basing and my own impressions and situation in mass media that we could analyze, that overwhelming majority, crucial majority of Ukrainians are ready to defend their country, ready to defend independent Ukraine. Ukraine nation, strong nation, is a reality of modern world and modern policy. It's very important to feel and understand.
Yeah, I want to mention that Mr. Tigran Avakyan was one of the organizers of Ukrainian, at least internal, local defense forces in Ukraine, and he has an experience in this field. Also, he's expert in security issues. So we know that there is about 500,000 Ukraine army, and it's equipped much better than used to be some years ago. What's your information? If you compare the army, current Ukraine army that existed several years ago, what's your impression? is it much better, or just people speak or governments speak about that?
Basing that I see and that I feel and that I know, 8 years ago we practically had no any serious army. But present time, Ukraine have strong, very professional and very well trained army that based on a lot of trainings and preparedness, basing the very strong assistance from our allies. Ukrainian army is really strong, and Ukrainian army is ready. That is also very important, ready to defend Ukraine. If speak about equipment of the army, I think that is on the highest level in Europe present time. Sure, nobody would like that this conflict will be a reality, but nation, present time, Ukrainian nation, submit for the consideration of the whole world a really readiness to defend their land, their country, their civilization.
Mm-hmm. Yes, actually, I know. Just today, I was looking for some figures about a poll. People were asked about their intention towards NATO and European Union. 62% see the future of Ukraine in NATO and 68% in European Union. This shows that, as everybody knows, the first line of defense is the policy, the diplomacy of the country. And it's very important that the country, Ukraine, is engaged more and more in European and world security discussions and conferences. Currently in Munich, a security conference going on, and we know that Zelensky will take part in that conference. Unfortunately, it seems that Armenia will not take part in that conference, which is really, as I mentioned, unfortunate event, because security is the most important issue for our country now. We have to tackle this issue with many European and foreign countries. What do you think? Will Zelensky discuss there the main issues? Oh, for sure he will be, but will he succeed to make security of Ukraine as the main topic of Munich conference?
I think that everybody in European Union understands and aware of that not exists security of European Union, security of NATO without strong Ukraine. It's very important to understand. This understanding is a key point of any structure of security construction on the territory of European continent. I think it's a kind of a mainstream that's most important that somebody will take floor. Participation of Ukrainian president is very important and crucial in this conference, because Ukraine now in the possible to say kind of a top of international politic game. If speak about Armenia, yes, I think that Armenia must participate in not only such conferences, but all conferences and events binding with Europe, binding with Western powers. It's very important that your voice must be understandable for everybody.
Yeah,
that's
I do remember that Mr. Putin in 2007 made his famous speech in Munich conference. Actually, he triggered the new Cold War, and after that, we see that step by step, the world is becoming more divided. The Cold War has some kind of revival, and the Iron Curtain is coming down. We, as citizens of Armenia and our Armenians, ethnic Armenians, do not want to see that Armenia will stay from the other side of this Iron Curtain as used to be during Soviet time, because it's clear that Armenia will have future with civilized world, with West. Unfortunately, many politicians in Armenia now speak about becoming members, so-called, of this союзное государство, this state, some kind of unified state, and so nobody really understands what is this, but it's some kind of Soviet Union light, where just couple of countries will participate, but they have the status just Soviet republics, not more. What will be your advice as an ethnic Armenian to Armenian higher-ranking officials? What they have to do to keep the independence of the country, and as well to provide security for the country? Because for me, the independence of Armenia is non-negotiable. We have to keep this, and keeping this will keep the hope to become more developed and strong country. Without independence, nothing good can happen with Armenia. What will be your advice?
I would like to start a little bit about Russia, because it's very important and binding concerning targeting the situation with Armenia. Ultimately, the judgment of Putin's strategic powers rests on the degree his actions had to detract from Russia's overall potential. After more than 20 years in power, Russia's economy, demographics, and civic vitality, the foundation of any country's power, are at best stagnant. It's necessary to be aware of this, to understand what is the future futurologist direction of development of Armenia. Armenians have very strong resources. Main and most important of these resources is Armenian diaspora, our sphere. It's necessary to create kind of unique system of coexistence, of common future, of common presence. If speak about relation between Armenia and between Armenian diaspora, it's necessary that Armenians start to come from different countries of the world to Armenia, because also demography is a key point of our future. Without stable demography, without as minimum 5 million population of the present territory of the Republic Armenians, to speak about our stable future will be very, very difficult, it's my opinion. We could rely only on our diaspora present time to become stronger. After we will become stronger, we will have a real alliance that will come without our request. It's very important to understand, as I think.
I totally agree with you, because the diaspora, the Armenian communities, are really bridges to that countries where they exist and live. I do remember from my experience in Canada that it was, for me, possible to meet many high officials thanks to Armenian community, their connections, to meet some politicians, some businessmen, because let's say for Canada, Armenia is far away, and only just through diaspora you make yourself and your country available for them, and important one, because the Armenian community usually in many countries is very influential, and it depends, as much as it's democratic country, it's more and more becoming influential. It's some kind of, if we compare to a wing, Armenia and diaspora, there are two wings, and without one wing, Armenia cannot fly. And this is important to understand. Unfortunately, there were hopes after so-called revolutions, but they remained until now just hopes, not a reality. What you can say about current Armenian community in Ukraine? In what part of Ukraine they live, massively live, and what is their attitude? Do they feel themselves as part of Ukraine society? Are they citizens of that country, or the majority are Armenian citizens just living there?
Armenian community in Ukraine is a part of Ukrainian society, very important part. And a lot of Armenians show them as a real patriots of Ukraine. A lot of soldiers and officers in past and present time defend Ukraine and will do it without any divisions. Ukrainian situation is very interesting, very separate, because in Ukraine we have no any divisions when some problem is arise. No ethnic division. Everybody feels them Ukrainians. It's a very important phenomenon. We everybody Ukrainians, but in cultural field we could be Bulgarian, Armenian, Greek, but it's our country. We are citizens of Ukraine. I think that for Armenian community is the best conditions exist to live, because all Ukrainian citizens are equal and there are no any kind of discrimination except any ethnic group in Ukraine. If speak about Ukraine, about Russia, about this crisis, I would like to state that consequently, the only way Russia can recover Ukraine as an ally in the near term is through coercion. To me, this suggests strategic failure more than strategic mastery. Even if he succeeds in physically subduing Ukraine, it will be unsustainable in the long term, the strategic term, against a country that is larger than France in both size and population. Ukraine is not Chechnya. It's necessary to understand.
I do agree that occupation of a country, it's not the end of a war. It's the beginning of another step controlling the country, and you have to control after if you occupy, and also you have to face a lot of let's say punishments and blockades from West and the other countries. They will try to keep down Russia. But this issue has another, let's say, outcome, maybe negative outcome for Armenia, because we are concerned that if Russia will be engaged in Ukraine, our neighbors, so-called neighbors, Turkey and Azerbaijan, will try to use the momentum and attack Armenia. We do not actually believe, and unfortunately we saw this, that Russia can or will provide security for Armenia, but this war will be kind of excuse for Russia not to do what he has to do, provide security and be as a guarantor of the Armenian security. What's your prediction? Is it possible, first of all, to have a large-scale war? I mean, not local forces of Lugansk and Donetsk to be engaged, but the main forces of Russia to be engaged to attack Ukraine. And if so, will this trigger another war in South Caucasus? And the third question is, what will be the position of Turkey? Because we see that Turkey is playing double game, sometimes with Russia, sometimes against Russia. Please.
The first, most important key point that I would like to stress. I'm sure that basing the all information, all data that we have as analytics, Russia has no any chances to occupy Ukraine. Again, we'll repeat, Ukraine is a great country. Ukraine is also a great power in Europe. And the Russians sure understand this situation. Other problem is that not all the time that Russia pursues the policy basing the logic. We know that Russia could act in some cases without any logic explanation. It's also possible to call the strategy, but it's not strategy, it's emotions. Concerning South Caucasian region, or as it's not South Caucasian, speak of Armenia, east part of Armenian highlands, I would like to tell that Armenia must pursue the policy targeted to secure national interest. For this, Armenia must establish durable contact with everybody. And so in this very difficult situation, understand how to speak, to communicate and with Turkey without any damage to Armenian interests. It's also very important to speak with everybody, to find allies, to understand what country could be our ally and what we could do in this process and how to do that this process will be mutual and will give everybody mutual benefits. I speak and about Iran and about India and about all the countries of Persian Gulf. It's very important to communicate, to defend the position. Without communication, will be no any process.
Yeah, and what about Turkish policy if a war will go on being enlarged around Ukraine?
I think Turkey during the centuries thought only about the interests of Turkey in past Ottoman Empire. We don't know what are the real interest of Turkey, but we see that real interest of Turkey is create strong Turkey, more strong than now. The Turkey that will be the main state in the region of Black Sea. The Turkey that will be the main state in South Caucasus and Central Asia. It's a direction, it's a framework of Turkey policy. I think Turkey will communicate and with Ukraine and communicate with Russia, only basing the interest of Turkish state. The same must do Armenia, communicate with everybody. The same must do every state in the world. It's very important to have national interest and do all the best to preserve this national interest.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Avakian. I would like to remind that my guest was Tigran Avakian, Deputy Internal Minister of Ukraine, speaking from Kiev. Thank you, and we hope that in the near future we'll have another interview for our Russian-speaking people. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kapian. I was very glad to participate in your very important program. Thank you.
Բաժանորդագրվեք ազգային ժողովրդավարական բևեռի YouTube-յան ալիքին։